Hey, Matt here. I wanted to tell you about the Scrapeboard Proxy Harvester and how it works. So if we jump into Scrapeboard, up here is the Proxy Manager Harvester tab. We can click on that and it brings up the main proxy section. Scrapeboard comes included with 7 at the moment internal proxy sources. You can add your own proxy sources by typing in an actual URL of a proxy source that you want to add, or by adding a text file that contains one proxy source per line. You can then remove selected and that sort of thing as well. If we want to go through here and actually harvest some proxies, you put a click and put an X next to the ones you want to use. So let's say we want to use this one, and I just did it a minute ago, so it shows completed over here. But we're going to harvest again. Down here, this is where most of your functions happen. We can harvest proxies down here. We have the option to test various things here, remove duplicates, shuffle them around, and that sort of thing. So we've got this one selected, so let's harvest the proxies. What's going to happen is it's going to go out and scrape that source and pull in all the proxies from it. You see 101 proxies in the list that came in. Now we can remove duplicates. Generally you won't have duplicates on one source, but if you did, like, say, a bunch of sources, you could have duplicates between them. So you'd want to remove duplicates, save you the time of testing. Didn't remove any there because it was just from the one source. Once that's done, we can then choose to test proxies against Google or not. This can be beneficial if you're wanting to scrape Google or use a Google service. Then it will test for that particular proxy whether or not it works with Google. If you're wanting to use the proxies just for AOL or Bing or Yahoo, or say you're creating forum accounts or profiles or posts or whatever, if you're using them for anything but Google, then you don't necessarily need to check that because it's obviously not relevant, and then you might wind up with more usable proxies because there's a likely chance that more proxies are blocked by Google than are just blocked in general. So we'll say we want to use them with Google, so we'll leave that checked. So then basically what we're going to do is we're going to hit test proxies. It'll run through, test each one in its own thread, and check for an IP test to see if the proxy is secure. In this case, we're checking against Google to see if it works with Google. We're also going to test the speed of the actual proxy, and then you can see if it fails, it'll give you like an error code, or it'll say timed out or passed, that sort of thing. Right now, it'll give you an indication as you're going along how many good proxies it's found in the list. And so you'll also notice over here, this is all grayed out, and you have the abort button, which you could stop it in the middle if you wanted to. Whenever it's done testing, it will show this. All these buttons will become black again. And so it looks like it's just finishing up here. So we will let it finish up. Out of 101 so far, we've got 10 good proxies that are both IP test passed and are Google passed. And there it finished. We can go through here and we can sort them. So if I click the buttons at the top, it'll sort them by speed or status, and then you can see that all the failed are lumped together, the 404s, that sort of thing, all the past ones, timeouts, and that sort of thing. We can remove the failed proxies, and that'll take away everything except for the past ones, the good ones. Then if you have a particular need because you want to filter to a certain millisecond or slower, the default's 1,000 in this case. I'm going to put like 5,000, and I'll remove any proxies that have a higher millisecond rating than that are slower than that. So that leaves me with here, a half a dozen left. I can shuffle proxies, rearrange them, that sort of thing, because they're used in order whenever they're used throughout various functions of Scrapeboard. So if you wanted to rearrange them, you could do that. And then we can export to a file, for instance, save them off. And then the next time we come in, if we want to import, we can just right click over here, or we can go over here and import proxies from a file. Or if you had them saved on your clipboard, you could bring them in that way as well. Copy paste. So we can go import and good, and then it'll bring them back in. Now, when it exports, obviously it doesn't save the speed rating and that sort of thing, because that can change depending on how many people are using it at once. But at least they're, you saved off those proxies, and then you can bring them back in. As far as settings go with the actual proxies, there's a couple of things. One thing you want to take note of is the use proxies when available option. Whenever that's checked, anything you do in Scrapeboard, doesn't matter if it's PageRank, harvesting, form accounts, profiles, posts, anything, it's all going to use the proxies that are set up on this particular section here. If you uncheck that, bear in mind, right now with that unchecked, every single one of these functions will not use proxies. So it will be using your regular IP from your internet service provider or your server IP or that sort of thing. So if you're using proxies and you want to use proxies, always make sure that use proxies when available option is checked. Then you also have the connections and timeout set up for the proxy test connections. That's when it was running through here testing all the proxies. You have your number of connections to use and then your timeouts to test each one for, and then the actual proxy harvester connections is up here when it was harvesting or scraping proxies from these particular sources. So I have my connections there and then my timeouts for that as well. And so that's pretty much how the proxy harvester works.